And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, February 3rd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. We've got an 8-game slate. I think I'm right there. 8-game slate ahead of us? Yes, I am right there. 8 games for today. Normal Friday. Got a lot of ugly on this slate. There's a lot of value out there that is disgusting. It's not as disgusting as everything that happened yesterday, but it should be disgusting either way. Get ready to play all of the trash on the Spurs, everybody. That's going to be a fun one. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter if you can. Adam, what's good? How did yesterday go?
I ended up going okay. Got there on the night slate. Somebody just mentioned it in chat. Won the $300 with a 0 from Bones. Like I was telling you before the show, I ended up just lock buttoning Kuminga on the night slate. Didn't have time to manage the fact that I was getting more Bones than I wanted, considering I thought there was a real chance he wouldn't play. Just had to go with it. And yeah, thanks to Giannis, beat this guy in the $300 anyway.
Yeah, got the big game out of Giannis, got the big game out of Jokic. I, on the other hand, had 60% of Luka Doncic, who was doing exactly what I needed him to do up until the point that he wasn't. Fun stuff.
Yeah, was complaining about that one before the show too. Like, absolutely miserable sweat in the Pelicans game. I had bet the Mavs minus 4.5 when I saw that the Pels were late getting into Dallas and then didn't have a ride from the airport. I was like, yeah, their routine's off. I'll just take the Mavs and, hope that it works out. I look and it's like 31 points at halftime or something. It's like, okay, cool. And then I tweeted out joking, like, everybody should take the Pels money line because it's like a 20-point Mavs lead late in the third quarter. Immediately hit send, immediately get Luka to the locker room notification. I'm just like, all right, I know how this is going to go. I would have lost the bet, except the refs completely screwed the game up at the end. Brandon Ingram stole an inbound pass. They called him out of bounds when he very clearly was not out of bounds. Gave the ball back to the Mavs. Also took a 2.5 off the clock for the Mavs. But yeah, just ridiculous that became a sweat.
I still had that box score open on my phone. So like I woke up, opened up my phone, looked at the box score, and I was like, oh, Luka played like 5 more minutes. They really just kicked the shit out of them. And I flipped over to the left side and I was just like, it's like the game back. And I was like, oh no, Luka got hurt. Like, this is even worse. I was furious. And it was 5:03 a.m.
Did you see
not the way to wake up?
Have you seen the Dylan Brooks and Donovan Mitchell highlight?
I have seen that, yes. As someone that had multiple, probably was like 2x the field on Donovan Mitchell, wasn't really stoked about that either.
Yeah, I mean, he was sucking anyway, but that certainly did not help.
No, it didn't.
I tweeted, I don't think that, like, that rule should be, I was kind of joking when I said it, but like, that rule should be like reevaluated. Like, if you punch somebody in the dick and they retaliate, it should be a tech on the guy that got punched and ejection for the guy that did it. Like, you can't have Dylan Brooks just running around getting the best player on the opposing team ejected.
No,
and nobody is going to just like get punched in the dick and be like, yeah.
No, it's one of those situations where everybody's just going to be like, he's got to do something.
Right. Yeah. There is no world where anybody doesn't immediately respond there.
Yeah. It should be way worse than it ended up being.
Right. I mean, good job by the Grizzlies coaching staff to literally tackle Dylan Brooks before it got worse.
So insane. Well, we got 8 games here. 3 games tipping off at 7. We got another 3 tipping off at 8. Late game is only 9 o'clock, so it should be a decent slate. But boy, oh boy, is there some ugly out there. Are you ready to break it all down?
Yeah.
Here we go. Charlotte Hornets, 1.5-point dogs in Detroit, 240 total. We don't totally know what's going on with the Hornets here. The assumption is that Gordon Hayward is going to be sitting on this back-to-back. He did sit their most recent back-to-back Monday and Tuesday of last week. They are on a back-to-back, so we don't totally know everything for the Hornets. But assuming Hayward is out for the back-to-back, we're getting a bunch of ownership going to LaMelo Ball at 9,700. He's like 25% owned. Jalen McDaniels is getting about 15%. I kind of like him a little bit more than the public showing just based on the minutes he's going to get. Mason Plumlee getting a little bit of love. Mark Williams probably getting slept on for today. I don't know why today is any different than any other day. But what do you want to do here with Charlotte, assuming Hayward is out?
I don't think Hayward makes that big of a difference because he doesn't do anything. LaMelo, one way or the other, is going to look good at 9,700. Even if Hayward's in, I like LaMelo. So I'm fine with that. The only guy that I think Hayward really makes a difference for is Jalen McDaniels, because McDaniels, has come off the bench the last couple of games, played 24, 26 minutes. If he's back in the starting lineup, you're likely getting, 30, 32 minutes from him, maybe even a little bit more. And that's going to, make him look decent at 4,700. He's pulling 15%, but he's the only guy here that that I like if Hayward is out and wouldn't like if Hayward is in. Other than that, I like LaMelo either way. Plumlee at 6,700 is just always a solid tournament play at modest ownership, because barring foul trouble and blowouts, he's going to play like 30 to 31 minutes. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy, so there's some upside there. Rozier's salary jumped quite a bit, so I don't really like him with or without Hayward. Outside of just kind of dart throws in tournaments. Same goes for PJ Washington. I think it's mostly I like LaMelo and Plumlee either way. I like McDaniels if Hayward's out, and I don't like a lot regardless of Hayward other than that.
Yep, we're on the same page. Mark Williams obviously is just always one of those guys that you can get to as a backup center if you don't have Mason Plumlee in a lineup, but not too much to add. I actually had a bit of him last night after I had to do all of the swaps for the Warriors, which thanks so much, Golden State, for just absolutely being pains in the asses yesterday. I've never, that's one of the bigger changes in a line I've ever seen for DFS. To see a game just sit at 12 all day and then all of a sudden drop, 6+ points or whatever it ended up being, so annoying. It's incredible. How that didn't get out earlier in the day is beyond me, but God, I hate the Warriors. I don't have anything else here for Charlotte.
Me neither.
The Pistons side, great fun here. Hamidou Diallo is off the injury report. Otherwise, everybody that's normally available is available. 15% ownership going to Bojan Bogdanovic at 6,600. Honestly, I like a little bit more than that number. We've got single digits going to everybody else. Basically, the only other guys getting ownership are Alec Burks and Killian Hayes. I got a little bit more interest in Alec Burks, at least as of right now. 5,100 point guard, shooting guard, starting point guard for the Pistons at this point. I don't mind getting to any sort of one of the starters for Detroit because, one, this game might actually be competitive for once for the Pistons because Charlotte also sucks. And two, Charlotte sucks. So it's really interesting for any team that plays them.
Yeah, I mean, any of the starters look fine. I think Bojan, pulling the most ownership probably should be the most popular. I'll throw Jaden Ivey in there at 6,200 and just say that, I think Bojan's the better play from a positional standpoint and also from a projection standpoint, but probably not 15-2 better at, similar prices. I like Burks and Hayes both. They're both pulling identical, about 9% ownership. You still have had Hayes coming off the bench, but last game managed to get up to 29 minutes. I think it's likely you just end up seeing, around 28 minutes from both guys, which at similar price points is going to make them both look pretty good. As usual, keep an eye on the starting lineup. If Hayes were to start, then I'm not really interested in Burks, but I absolutely love Hayes. If Isaiah Stewart were to start in place of Sadiq Bey, I like not only Stewart more, but I would like Jalen Duren a lot more as well. Assuming, though, that Stewart is still coming off the bench, 4,600 power forward. He's okay as a low-owned tournament option. Games where he plays 20 minutes, he's not going to look good, but games where you get a 24-24 split with Duren, he would. I think on average, you're probably getting like 21, 22 minutes from Stewart. Duren at 5,400, tough to prioritize just because you have Stewart backing him up, which is going to cut into his minutes. That's why I'd like Duren more. If they did move Stewart back into the starting lineup, it would suggest that obviously they're playing minutes alongside each other, but that's not what we've seen recently. So it makes him just a relatively high ceiling tournament play at low ownership, because if he somehow finds 30 minutes against Charlotte, he should destroy them. But on average, you're expecting like 26 minutes.
Got to push back on Hayes a little bit here. I don't like that at all for today. He is going to split time with Burks and play whatever Burks doesn't play. The only reason they played alongside each other was aggressive foul trouble from Jaden Ivey on Monday. Otherwise, I don't think that we were going to get a single minute of Hayes and Alec Burks alongside each other. I think Killian Hayes is pretty much set for 20 minutes, 19 minutes, depending on what you don't get out of Burks. Ivey picked up his third foul, immediately came out in the second quarter. Hayes ended up playing the rest of that quarter. Hayes came in for his normal stint in the third quarter, but did pick up 2 more fouls there and then fouled out in the fourth quarter, leading to him obviously not being able to finish the game. I don't think that we're going to get those two guys. Like, they split the 48 minutes on Saturday at point guard. I think that's what they're trying to do.
They intentionally played alongside each other at the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter.
Oh, they staggered Burks.
Yeah.
and then didn't close the second quarter with Burks. That seems like a weird rotation, though.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of it, but like I think you're right. Like maybe it doesn't end up being 28-28, but even if you get like 25-26 from Hayes, I'd like him at that price.
I mean, other than that, I don't. What do you think they do there if Ivy doesn't get into foul trouble in the second quarter? You think that's Hayes playing out the rest of the second quarter, or do you think Burks comes back out there? Like, I can't wrap my head around why that broke the way that it did.
I mean,
was
I think
Burks in foul trouble too? No,
I think Hayes was just playing well. It looks like.
Why do you bring Burks back in for 26 seconds?
Livers picked up a foul.
Livers foul trouble what we're worried about? I guess he had 4 at that point. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, I will say I don't think it's 28-28 after, you pointing that out. But like if Burks starts, I think it's probably like you project around 30 for Burks and like 25-26 for Hayes. But there's a path where Hayes can pick up more minutes if he's playing well, like we saw at the end of the second quarter.
Yeah, that one's weird to me. What was Burks's rotation? We're probably spending too much time on Alec Burks, but I actually like him today. So I want to see what Burks's rotation looked like on the 28th. Did he play that staggered first rotation? That was against Houston. It was competitive. Burks. Okay, so Burks didn't play that staggered rotation in that game. And those guys just split those minutes. I wonder why they did that. I mean, it's the Pistons. Who the hell knows?
Right.
But I wonder why they brought Burks back out there at that point. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, though. It was something that I looked at, too. And I was like, oh, they will play them alongside each other. And then I saw Ivy, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect Jaden Ivey to be in aggressive foul trouble.
Yeah. The other thing for me is just like, from a logic standpoint, what are the Pistons really going to be playing Killian Hayes 20 minutes a night while they give Alec Burks more minutes?
Maybe. I don't know. I think they like Burks. They shouldn't like Hayes. Although Burks could be out of there.
They absolutely should be trying to get Hayes as many minutes as they can.
I don't know how true that is.
When the alternative is Alec Burks?
I think they're going to have plenty of time to get Killian Hayes point guard minutes after they trade Alec Burks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, other than Boyan, I think Alec Burks is the second best player on the Pistons. So there's also that. I mean, Killian Hayes is garbage.
He's been playing better recently.
46% true shooting on the season.
Yeah, I said recently.
Kinda. He's just trash. Just trash. Anyway, anything else for the Pistons?
No.
Let's go to Sacramento. The Kings are 3-point favorites in Indiana, 242 total. Big piece of news here. No De'Aaron Fox, out for personal reasons on this one, which creates a giant trickle down. I assume we get Davion Mitchell in the starting lineup here. He is point guard, shooting guard eligible, flat 3K, pulling 24% ownership. Kevin Huerter is 24% owned at 5,400. That is a much bigger talking point given what we've seen out of him for the past 2 games. Sabonis is getting some love, and that is well-deserved at 10-1. Doesn't see the same bump you would totally expect from Fox not being there, but just good in general. Harrison Barnes looks really good at 5,300. He's just playing 36 minutes a night. There's the possibility of Malik Monk, whose price is rising. I don't know what they do with someone like Terrence Davis for today. When you look at Sacramento, what are you expecting to do here? What stands out most to you?
Yeah, I mean, Fox being out obviously makes this team as a whole look really appealing. Sabonis would look good one way or the other. Great matchup as well. Like you said, not necessarily as big a bump as you would expect without Fox, but 3 games without him this year, 1.35 DraftKings points per minute, pretty similar to what you just get from him in general. But really good matchup, reasonable price tag. Is relatively difficult, from an opportunity cost standpoint because he's center only. But 542 total minutes without Fox, 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. So again, surprisingly not a big bump for him, but still going to look really good. Malik Monk's at 1.15 DraftKings points per minute without Fox on the floor. $4,800 is a relatively expensive price tag, but there are more minutes available here. His playing time has been sporadic, but when he plays well, typically gets more minutes. In the 3 games without Fox, still only 22 minutes per game. So I think there's like a better chance that he gets extra minutes, but it's also not a guarantee. Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Keegan Murray are all going to look pretty good as wing options. Barnes at 0.82 DraftKings points per minute without Fox. Murray 0.76, Huerter 0.94. It's really weird to me how little these rates change without De'Aaron Fox, but
yeah,
it's still, I think at the very least you can argue that you get a higher ceiling because you're never going to get a game where De'Aaron Fox just defers to Harrison Barnes.
no.
But with him out, you're replacing him with Davion Mitchell, who is not a offensive player. So at the very least, there's just an easier path for a Kevin Huerter game or a Harrison Barnes game or a Keegan Murray game. Whereas when Fox is out there, like at best, those guys are the third option. That's never going to change really.
Does Huerter's ownership scare you for today?
A little bit, just because it's Kevin Huerter, but he's likely playing north of 30 minutes. He's just shy of a fantasy point per minute guy without Fox. Good matchup, shooting guard, small forward. Like I get why it's there. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of spots that you can pivot to that project worse, but from a range of outcome standpoint, are reasonable pivots. But I think the ownership makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. Feels like it's got to be hard for him to get out of a closing lineup now with Fox gone. Am I crazy? Like they would just close? Couldn't they close?
Monk, Huerter, Barnes, Murray, Sabonis.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I think it feels a lot better. Because we've seen Kevin Huerter play 18.5 and 21.5 over the past two. It starts to get a little scary, but I don't think that matters now with Fox gone.
I mean, he could still not be in it. Like they could close Mitchell Monk.
Sure. Something to keep an eye on, just because, the 24% ownership to Huerter right now at 5,400, 4,800 for Monk at 10% ownership. Interesting balance between the two, at least.
Yeah. And I assume you're just going to Davion Mitchell if he starts.
Yeah, I think you have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I do know earlier in the year when he started, I said on a show that like before I had time to redo lineups that I expected to just be plugging him in everywhere, and then I didn't. I ended up not needing to, but I think it's gonna be really difficult not to here. 0.66 DraftKings points per minute this year without Fox and with Sabonis. 0.72 overall without Fox, but you just get the really good matchup here. I think the game that I was thinking about before was against like Miami, like a really unappealing spot. In the 3 games that Mitchell has played without Fox, 28.8 minutes per game, 0.61 DraftKings points per minute, but he's 3K flat. So it's just, he's not going to project really well, but that's a really cheap price tag for a starting point guard against Indiana.
Yeah, I only got to 21%. So I think we're in the same boat here and talking like it might not be that, like he does seem great and you're probably getting very close to him in a cash lineup, but we've also got Malachi Branham that's going to be out there for San Antonio when we talk later. And it seems as of right now that we're going to have a lot of value today. Might soften the ownership on Davion Mitchell. That said, this is an incredible matchup and I'm happy to get any amount of him.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It's reflected in the ownership too. Like he's only pulling 25% ownership, 17% chance of being optimal. Most guys, like imagine if TJ McConnell was 3K stepping into the starting lineup against, against Indiana, but you get the point. Like he would just be 80% owned. Like most backup point guards in the spot at 3K are just going to be 70, 80% owned. It speaks to how bad Davion Mitchell is from a fantasy standpoint, but still very, very obviously a good value piece.
Alrighty. Before we get to Indiana, gotta go ahead and hit the super chat from Des Morris. Just showing love. Thanks for your time, Josh and Adam. God bless. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you. I assume you were very happy when Luka didn't get there yesterday. Indiana side of this one. I don't know if we could talk about it or not, but we're gonna give it a shot. Do you think Tyrese Halliburton's playing today?
Yes.
Yeah. I left him in. I think it's reasonable. I could see a scenario where he played 35.5 minutes yesterday because he knew he wasn't playing today.
Yeah.
I didn't expect 35.5 minutes yesterday. That's for sure.
Right. So like, I don't think it's a guarantee at all that he plays today. The reason I'm guessing yes, though, is just that I think they waited until he was just 100% healthy to bring him back. I kind of thought that based on Carlisle's comments when he said, I expect him to play. I don't know if he can play full minutes or not. It wasn't even like we're going to, we're going to limit him or anything. It was just like, yeah, we're going to see how it goes. After the game, as far as I know, the injury never even really came up. He just talked about playing like trash in the fourth quarter and complained about the refs. So yeah, I mean, if he sits, it shouldn't surprise anybody, but my guess for right now is that he'll play. Also not overly worried about it because this is a 7 p.m. game.
Yep. Agree there. I mean, I want him. If TJ McConnell weren't 6,900, there's a part of me that would want Halliburton to just be out for today and, create a little bit more value in a great Pacers Sacramento matchup. But for now, how do you feel about Halliburton?
By the way.
I can see that. I have him in, so we can talk about it. 9,200 for Halliburton. I mean, if you think that he can play 35 minutes against Sacramento, obviously we've got like the revenge narrative alert for this game too. But can you get there?
Honestly, also, if he's going to sit on a half of a back-to-back, doesn't he just wait and play today?
You would think.
I mean, like that's one spot where I think that narrative would come into play, where it's just like, hey, can I just sit one more game and then play this one instead of that one?
Yeah. I agreed.
Yeah.
I had the back and forth with S&P during the process show about like, is he playing? Do we think he's playing? But
right.
we hit all of these notes already.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if he plays at 9,100, I assume he's not going to be limited and he is going to look like a good option. If he doesn't play, then you get to either play a $6,900 TJ McConnell and feel really gross about it, or not play a $6,900 TJ McConnell and watch him shoot 100% and steal the ball 8 times. So damned if you do, damned if you don't there. We know how that goes. But McConnell would at least look reasonable if Halliburton is out. If Halliburton is in, obviously you are not touching TJ McConnell, and I still think playing Halliburton would look fine.
23% ownership coming to Aaron Nesmith, 3,600. I feel like I was the only one that was getting to him for like 2 weeks. And now for some reason he's chalk and he's just going to play well. So I have a little bit of him. I don't have nearly as much as I had for like the 2 weeks prior where he'd be 5% owned and I'd have 30. But
yeah, I mean, it's just not the kind of play that I need to get a lot of when he's 23% owned. I understand he's underpriced and he's not a horrible point per minute guy. He's not good. He's around like 0.8 fantasy points per minute. One thing to mention from yesterday, he played 35 minutes yesterday. That obviously is on the table, but keep in mind, he was playing ridiculously well in that game. You can't just expect going forward that you're always going to get low to mid 30s from Nesmith and 20 minutes from Benedict Mathurin. Like that's going to average out where they both play 26 to 28 minutes most nights. So I do still think Nesmith's underpriced. I still don't like the ownership coming to him because it's likely that he's just getting like 21, 22 fantasy points.
So annoying. Nembhard's getting 16% ownership. I don't have a ton of interest in that, but 3,900, I guess it's fine.
I mean, that's because we have Halliburton out.
That makes sense. Even still, like 3,900, he's a fine option as a value pivot. I'm not all that excited. He's also terrible on a per minute basis.
Yeah, especially if they assuming either Halliburton or McConnell is starting, we know that Nembhard's not very good on a point per minute basis. He is cheap enough now where, if Halliburton's out, I certainly would not mind getting to him. If Halliburton is in, you can still try and get lucky at 3,900. I assume if Halliburton is in, that Nesmith ownership holds, but the Nembhard ownership drops, in which case Nembhard becomes an interesting pivot away from Nesmith.
Anything else you want to touch on for Indiana?
Miles Turner still looks good in tournaments. 8% ownership, good spot as long as he can avoid fouling Sabonis. Played 31.5 minutes last night. Typically, you're getting around 30, 31 on average. Sometimes plays a little bit more. So I just like him at low ownership. Buddy Hield played 36 minutes last night. I think that's interesting because I had expected him to only play around 32 or 33. So the fact that he played a little bit more, even with Halliburton back, is interesting. Again, maybe when you see Mathurin play a little bit more, Hield plays a little bit less. But Duarte played a lot less than I expected last night. So that was the big thing. Was you and I talked about it. Do they shorten the rotation or are they just sort of adding a body to it? And they still played all of those guys, but you only got 9 minutes from Brissett, 6 from Duarte. That opened up more minutes for Nembhard, Nesmith, Hield as well. So that was just kind of an interesting rotational point from last game. Makes Buddy Hield at 6,500 a little bit more interesting.
Hit that like button, folks. Let's see if we can get that number north of 100. We've got the No House Advantage NBA show coming up at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 5 p.m. And then you'll get NBA Live before lock from 6 until 7:30. Good slate. I'll have my contenders videos out immediately after this show. You'll also get Adam's NBA Bet Pro videos coming out this afternoon. Lots of time, lots of content for you guys to take in today. So enjoy it all, folks. And again, make sure you're hitting that like button. Portland Trailblazers are 4-point dogs in Washington, 237.5 total. we have no use of Nurkic for today. Justice Winslow is out. Q tag on Jeremy Grant, which will be the big piece. 15% ownership coming to Dame at 10-6. Interesting to see right now. 9.5% ownership coming into Drew Eubanks at 3,800. Kind of surprises me. Why is Drew Eubanks not getting more ownership here as what I assume a 28-minute starting center at 3,800?
It's a good question. I do not know.
He's a better play than 9.5% today, right?
I would think. I mean, we have him with a 5% chance of being optimal, so I don't know.
We have Nurkic in? How many minutes do we give him?
I don't know. That's
Drew Eubanks, by the way, in every start that he's had this year, averaging 28 minutes.
Yeah, he's played like normal minutes. I know the first game he started, I thought they might not do that and got burned. Yeah, we have him at 26 minutes. I think he projects for more.
Yeah. Even at 26 minutes, he's a really good per minute guy for right now. That's a great price tag for a starting center.
Yeah. In starts without Nurkic this year, 22 minutes. Can't see how many foul. Yeah, I don't know what happened in this game, but 22 minutes, 27, 33, 32, 32, 27. The most recent was January 28th against Toronto. He played
22.
Yeah, he played 22. They didn't close with him. They were that was the game where Watford just played 26. It was just like a weird game where I think typically you're going to see those reversed. I think 26 is a reasonable projection here. 28 is certainly not off the table. But either way, I'm just surprised he's not getting more ownership. We have him at 22 DraftKings points at 3,800. Kind of surprised he doesn't look better.
Same. I think it looks really good. And then if we don't get Jeremy Grant, I think Jabari Walker, probably the guy that benefits the most there. 3,100 power forward center eligibility. Happy to go that direction. Don't really see a ton else here for Portland. Josh Hart's fine at 5,200. If he's not pulling any ownership, he's the type of guy that I'm happy to get to because it's small forward. But I think Eubanks is the most interesting piece of this team.
Yeah, and I mean Watford as well. Like,
yeah,
him and Eubanks did split the center minutes last game. He's power forward eligible at 3,300, whereas Eubanks is 3,800. If they're going to pull the same ownership, I think Eubanks looks a little bit better, just because you're going to get some games where it's 28-20 Eubanks. But I do appreciate the power forward eligibility for Watford as well.
Likewise. Do you have anything else you want to touch on for Portland? They're kind of an easy team to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Dame looks good. Simons and Grant are relatively inexpensive. If Grant's out, I'm with you. You probably get Walker, but you could also get Nas Little.
I don't know how much they're trying to put miles on Nas Little. We saw Walker. I believe Walker took over for Grant at halftime of the last game. So that was my only assumption for Walker.
But Little had started for Hart.
Interesting. Okay. Wonder how they're seeing that.
I think it might.
Whoever starts in Grant's stead is going to look good.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good.
I kind of think Walker was just like a spot start there. I don't know. It was weird. Nas Little played more minutes in the second half than Walker did without Grant. But yeah, I don't know. If they start Walker, he's certainly interesting. But I would feel better if they started Nas Little because I know they'll just play him real minutes.
We don't have to worry about too much here on the next side. Washington looks terrible. Daniel Gafford is in. Whether or not he's starting alongside Kristaps Porzingis, we don't necessarily know. I don't find anything to be all that interesting from Washington. There are guys that you can obviously rotate through in GPPs. There's not a single guy even approximating a priority here for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Beal and Porzingis look the most interesting. Beal coming in at 7,400. The problem is just that his playing time has been down since coming back from injury. Seems like Washington's decided maybe they should just take it easy on Beal, keep him on the floor as opposed to having him play 2 games and sit 5 games and then play 2 games again. But 7,400 for him is certainly a reasonable price tag. Porzingis is probably my favorite play here. He has power forward eligibility. He's 8,900. He's likely giving you 33, 34 minutes. We know he's a good point per minute guy when he's out there, regardless of who else is on the floor with him. So I think that's a spot that maybe is going a little bit overlooked. If Gafford starts at center, 6% owned, we know the ceiling that he offers, but with Porzingis back, he doesn't have that same likelihood of playing 30 minutes. But I think any of Gafford, Beal, Porzingis look fine. Kuzma too, I guess, but I would put him a step behind Beal and Porzingis at his price. But Porzingis is actually, I think, my favorite guy to get to.
You want to handle the Beal is so washed now comment in chat? I think we have enough time for it.
I mean, he's not. He's actually playing really. If you go to dunks. So if you go to dunks and threes and sort by offensive EPM, and then you scroll down to Bradley Beal, the offensive players that are comparable to him so far this year: Pascal Siakam, De'Aaron Fox, Bojan Bogdanovic, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Desmond Bane, DeMar DeRozan, Aaron Gordon. Like, he's been good offensively. He's 93rd percentile in offensive EPM, 27% usage this year, 91st percentile. 61% true shooting is like 75th percentile. He's still been good offensively. He's not as he doesn't have as much usage this year as he has in previous years, which has made him worse from a fantasy standpoint, but the dude is still good.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Now, defensively, very different story, but we're not worried about that. I just wanted you to be able to get that in. Phoenix Suns, 9.5-point dogs in Boston, 225 total. This one's pretty simple. I can't imagine playing someone from the Phoenix Suns today. Landry Shamet, Devin Booker campaign still out. If you get to Bridges, Paul, or Ayton, you're not going to feel like a crazy person. No one's getting any ownership. They played 12 guys the past 2 games. Now, obviously, a blowout had something to do with it, but I don't have a single share of Phoenix. I think they're the worst team on the slate.
Yeah, Chris Paul, clearly a horrible game last time out, even before the blowout. But if he's going to be 3% owned, I'm interested. Like, nothing changed other than they got blown out last game and he played bad. But it is a tough matchup here against Boston, obviously. I just think that he's going a little bit overlooked. Same can be said for Ayton, but I'm with you as far as not having a ton of interest, just because those guys do play positions where you're going to have plenty of other good options.
Taking it quickly to Boston, because there's just not much more to add there. No Marcus Smart. Otherwise, this team is at full strength. And evidently, Boston is just like Phoenix. Single-digit ownership across the board. 4% to Tatum is the high mark. I actually like Jaylen Brown for 8,800, given the position and the current ownership. But much like the other side, I don't see much here for Boston that makes me get excited.
I don't really either. Like, Tatum's priced up. Jaylen Brown at 8,800 is fine. Shooting guard, small forward, but I don't think he's going to really look like a priority. Robert Williams in tournaments, he lost playing time last game because of the blowout win over Brooklyn. He was certainly playing well. You had gotten 19 minutes through 3 quarters. He played about 5, 10, 13 minutes in the first half. I expect him, to be around 26, 28, probably like 28 minutes if this game is relatively competitive. So I don't mind him at no ownership, but there's just always a lot of good center plays as well.
It's a pretty easy game to get through, right?
Yeah.
You know what looks a lot better than that game? Prize Picks, the presenting sponsor of this show. If you guys click the link in the description and sign up at Prize Picks, you can get up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you put in 50, they'll match with 50. But if you put in 100, they will match with 100. You're picking player props. You're taking over-unders. My recommendation, put together 5 on one card. You can net up to 10x your entry fee, unless Luka Doncic gets hurt in the middle of smashing, at which point you'll only get 4 out of 5. It happens from time to time. We have a Prize Picks player prop tool at Stokastic.com that I think will help you out tremendously. But for right now, Adam and I are going to hit on a couple raw points player props for right now. Let's start it off. Damian Lillard. Buckle up for this one. 35 real points. To me, this is a clear under. I don't know what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, under.
Get that in. I'm going to get that in now and tweet that out at the end of this show for sure. But I have no idea why Damian Lillard is projected for 35 real points today. We'll go to your boy, Bradley Beal, 21.5.
We have 21.9 in 32 minutes. I wouldn't take it.
I got 21.3, so I would also not take it. Let's go back to Boston. Jason Tatum, 30.5.
Slight under. We have 30 and 36.5 minutes.
Yeah, I got 30.2, so that's probably going to be an under for me as well. Let's hit one more. Okay, this one could inform some opinions at least. Daniel Gafford's at 11.5. I have him at 12 in 25 minutes, so I guess I'm about right.
Yeah, we have him at 11.3 and 25.
There we go. Well, if you're looking for more Prize Picks stuff, guys, you're in luck. Starting Monday, I will be doing a Prize Picks video throughout the week. I think you guys will enjoy that. And just sign up using the link in the description. It's going to be a good time. Promise you that much. We move it on to game number 5. The Toronto Raptors are 6-point favorites in Houston, 230 total. I already know I got a ton of questions about Houston, but let's start here with Toronto. 15% ownership coming to Van Vliet, single digits going to the rest of this Toronto team. This is as good of an environment as you're going to find. We're still without OG Anunoby. That said, I didn't get to as much Toronto as I expected, but you're never going to feel bad about any one of these starters.
No, great spot. And you know these guys are going to play big minutes. Van Vliet's been playing really well recently, and you've seen it coincide with Siakam taking a step back in terms of his rates and his production. I still like getting the Van Vliet here. Still only 8,300. Just a massive ceiling for him in this spot. Playing big minutes, 37, 38 minutes on a nightly basis for him. So he's pulling the most ownership. He is also my favorite guy to get to. Siakam's pulling 9%. He's down to 9,100 on DraftKings. Still only center eligible, though. And, not producing it as good of a clip over the last 30 days. He's about 1.05 to 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. Still can certainly get it done here against Houston, but I think the ownership is pretty much there on him. Achua only pulling 3% ownership is sort of interesting. Like, his price tag keeps rising. He only played 25 minutes last game, so that's a very real reason for concern. We just got a deeper bench rotation. Christian Coloco played 9 minutes. Boucher played 20, which is normal. Young played 14. But you got Delano Banton and Flynn combining for like 15 minutes instead of like 4. So the rotation last game certainly was concerning for Achua. But if he goes back out and plays like 33 minutes, he's going to smash Houston. So I think the lack of ownership is kind of interesting. It's just a risky play. Trent, Barnes both look fine as well. But to me, the guy that I really want to get to is $8,300 Van Vliet.
All righty. I agree. I think Van Vliet looks the best, but give me any one of these dudes and I'm going to be more than okay with it. That's what happens when you get to play Houston.
Yep.
Speaking of Houston, you're going to have to talk me through why this is happening. I don't, maybe it's the Q tags, I guess. Kevin Porter Jr. is out. Jalen Green is out. We've got a Q tag on Eric Gordon and a Q tag on Jabari Smith. Jae'Sean Tate is in. If all of these guys are in, I'm still cool with getting to 9K Alperen Sengun, although it does give me a little bit of sticker shock. $5,500 Eric Gordon to me is also a really nice value option, a different player with these guys off. And then you and I were both getting to Jabari Smith 2 days ago. I see no reason that I'm not going to do that again. Power forward center, 5,600. It's got to be the Q tags, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, well, yeah, no, I don't know why there's not more ownership here. Like, Jabari Smith is questionable. If he plays, I like getting him at low ownership. If he doesn't play, you should get Tari Eason starting and looking good at 5,800 over a fantasy point per minute guy. For the love of God, if Jabari Smith plays, do not play Tari Eason at 5,800. I know he scored 100 fantasy points in 19 minutes last game, but you can't count on, him just recording a double-double or picking up 10 rebounds on one possession because of how bad he is at scoring. It's like, that's a spot. Like, I know people were talking about it in chat yesterday, like that they thought Eason was a good play and he came through. All you have to do is go back and look and see that in a game that Jabari Smith got injured, Tari Eason still played like 19 minutes and realize you were wrong about him being a good play. Don't play him at $5,800 if Jabari Smith is in. If Jabari Smith's out, by all means, go to Tari Eason, assuming he's starting. But no Jalen Green, no Kevin Porter Jr. Eric Gordon still looks good at 5,500. KJ Martin looks fine. Sengun looks great at 9K. He struggled last game, but he's still been about a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy this year without those guys. Deshaun Nix played 32.5 minutes. I have no idea why this team's not getting ownership.
At least we're on the same page there. I have no clue either. Yeah, and if you want to know, if just to add on a little bit more on Tari Eason, I think I dropped that number in chat, but 150 maxers in the $15 played Eason in like 15 of the however many 150 max lineups existed. It was like 0.1%. If you're ever looking for a sign on whether or not that was like a good decision or a bad decision, I promise you that is going to be your biggest indicator. That's just, it's just right there for you. Okay. Also keep in mind, like, this could be a ridiculous Houston team if we end up getting Gordon and Jabari Smith also out. At which point, like, all hell breaks loose for these guys. You're playing real slop at the bottom. Like, Josh Christopher starts looking interesting. Tari Eason ends up in everything that you're doing. Like, it just becomes really wild.
Yeah, if Jabari's out, you're just playing Tari Eason.
Yeah. DeShamey's 5,800.
Yeah.
It's more expensive than Eric Gordon. Like, I don't even know how that happened.
That's crazy. I mean, how it happens is 50 fantasy points last game or whatever.
That's true. You miss 10 straight shots and you get all of your own rebounds. I have nothing else here for Houston.
Who I was only half listening. Who did you keep saying was questionable other than Jabari Smith?
Eric Gordon.
He's not on the injury report.
He's questionable on Basketball Monster right now. They must play tomorrow.
Well, I'm glad that after making fun of chat, you are now also using made-up injury designations and not the actual ones. Yeah, the injury report is just Jabari Smith questionable, Jayshawn Tate available.
Yeah, they play the Thunder tomorrow. Does he normally sit the front or the back? Set the back end of the back-to-back there. I think I have him in and playing and looking great. So anyway, I deserve that one, by the way. Yeah. Orlando Magic 5-point dogs.
I was really hoping you were going to say Basketball Monster. I didn't think you actually would.
What's really funny is he didn't have that Q tag this morning when I did the injury, like my process show. So that got added, and I just assumed when I looked at it that he was a late ad. I didn't notice that it was the rest icon, which is normally one that I will second guess. Magic are 5-point dogs in Minnesota, 228 total. We're like one more game away from getting Okiki back, so that should be a blast. John Isaac is available. There's a lot of ownership coming into Orlando. 13% to Franz, 20 to Banchero, 14 to Wendell Carter, 11 to your boy, Jalen Suggs. I feel like Orlando's a little over-owned here.
Yeah, I feel like people are getting a little carried away with what happened last game. Although, like, Jonathan Isaac was out, but 26 minutes from Jalen Suggs is a lot. And we know he had played 20 the game before that. I don't really know what to do with it, but, like, Fultz still played 33. Anthony only played 18. I think that's where you kind of are going to see a back and forth where some games Anthony plays 24 and, Suggs plays 18. But kind of interesting. Like, Isaac being back is going to take 10 minutes out of the rotation, which does matter here. Suggs at 3,600. Like, I'd be interested if he wasn't popular. If he's going to pull 12% ownership, I don't really like it too much, but if he plays, 20 to 22 minutes, could still get there. I almost think I would rather take a chance on a $4,700 Anthony at no ownership and just hope that it's the 26-minute Cole Anthony game instead of the 26-minute Jalen Suggs game. But they're both risky as hell. Fultz at 5,700, I do still like. He's still playing big minutes. He's not the best fantasy producer, but the minutes are there. Wendell Carter at 5,800 is a pretty good price tag. Still like the $6,800 Banchero price tag. $6K for Franz is good. Like, I understand why this team's getting ownership. I'm just a little scared of the ownership coming into the bench guys because Isaac coming back does take 10 minutes away from somewhere. And I just don't have a ton of confidence in how things break down between like Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs.
Super chat from Sir Dwayne Moody said, "Happy Friday, fellas. Honest question. Adam, with all the DFS expertise, why not play parlays? Go Eagles. No go Eagles on that one, but you want to handle this?"
I couldn't sports bet online until like 3 months ago. And I haven't put that much time into being good at sports betting. So typically don't do it outside of using the NBA Bet Pro tool because I look at it and talk about it anyway. So it's right in front of me.
Let's also go ahead and say that we probably shouldn't be advocating for blind parlays in large volume. They are certainly getting played incorrectly across this industry in a pretty aggressive manner right now.
Yeah, like it's not, they're not like necessarily bad, but it's not like you still have to be making good ones.
Yeah. If we're being technical, the first bets that you should be putting down are all individual bets on the things that you're putting in that parlay. And then you're working your way up to a parlay if you're still creating the value there. But that is a secondary factor, not a primary factor. Parlays are going to get people real extra broke over the next bit because let's not forget, these single game parlays and stuff, these books are treating you quite poorly on the way that they calculate these odds. It's really, really, really bad. Yeah, they are not. I don't recommend those at all. Now, look, if you identify 5 bets that you think have an edge, you have a 2% edge on every one of them, whatever you want to say that it is. in theory, you should be betting those in every single combination possible to maximize the growth of your bankroll, including getting all the way to that 5-team parlay. But you're also betting then a very tiny increment of your bankroll on that parlay, with much more of it going to those 5 individual bets. All righty, we'll go to the Minnesota side. These guys, man. Gobert, questionable. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Taurean Prince, questionable. Bryn Forbes, questionable. If we don't get Rudy Gobert, it's Naz Reid night. If we do get Rudy Gobert, I like Rudy Gobert today. How do you want to handle Minnesota?
Whoever's starting at center looks good, as they have, Gobert still 6,800, good price tag for him, good matchup. If it's Naz Reid, 4,800, like the price came back up, but still certainly playing a lot of him with power forward eligibility. I will not be going to Minnesota backup centers. I am 0 for 2 on that, and I'm done with it. But Gobert or Reed, whichever one is starting, is going to look really good. Anthony Edwards looks fine at 9,900, playing really, really well, playing a lot of minutes. That price tag is also getting pretty aggressive, and the ownership is there. I still like $7,200 D'Angelo Russell, playing a ton of minutes recently. Price tag's not moving. I don't really like a ton else. If Gobert's out, maybe Kyle Anderson plays a little bit more at 5,700, but I think that's pretty much a correct price tag.
Yeah, we're either getting the Gobert experience, which usually goes poorly for me, or we're getting the Naz Reid experience, which usually goes poorly for Dez. Brandon Katz in here telling me that I'm dumb. By the way, Luka Doncic outscored LeBron James in 22 minutes yesterday. Who's dumb now, man? Spoiler alert. It is you, Brandon Katz. It is you. Figured you'd come back for some ass take for some strange reason. I got nothing else here from Minnesota.
Yeah, me neither.
The Philadelphia 76ers are 10-point favorites in San Antonio today. 237 total. We've got a Q tag on Joel Embiid. This might be like the most obvious, Joel Embiid should not play this game in the history of games, but we'll see what we end up with, I guess. For now,
I mean, Joel Embiid also wants MVP. I think he probably wants to play the Spurs.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. He's pulling 20% ownership at 11-3. Harden's getting 10. I mean, 20% ownership for Embiid feels a little healthy in this spot. That said, he does look like the best Sixers option.
Yeah, I mean, he should beat the hell out of Spurs if he plays. The problem is just the position. Like, he's $1,200 more than Domantas Sabonis. You have, just guys that we've already talked about. You have Şengün, you have Turner, you have Wendell Carter at 5,800. You have DeAndre Ayton at 7,800. You have Robert Williams. You have, Gafford. You have Eubanks. This probably is also why Eubanks isn't getting more ownership now that we're going through all of this. You have Plumlee. Like, there's so many good centers today where Embiid has to give you that really, really big game. If you get 57, 58 DraftKings points from Embiid, it's very, very likely that he's actually hurting your team, even though that's, clearly a solid score. So I think it's a great spot. The ownership is probably about where it should be, if not a little bit high. I don't mind James Harden here just because it's a really good matchup at 9,600. The playing time's been down a bit recently, but he did play 37.5 minutes last game, which was good to see. Really good matchup, 10% ownership coming into him. Obviously, if Embiid were to sit, this becomes just get James Harden into a ton of lineups. Harris would look better. Melton would look better. Maxey would look better. But assuming Embiid's in, I like Harden. Other than that, I'm not too interested in anything else.
I hate wrapping back to this. Did you read Katz's comment? How stupid it is?
No, I just saw his name and clicked timeout.
Josh with another dumb comment. Same game parlays are almost always correlated parlays. Correlated parlays are always positive EV for the player. This moron,
no matter what the hold is, doesn't
this
matter.
moron is saying that any correlated parlay, any single game parlay that you make when you roll to the sports book is just plus EV.
It's amazing that casinos are in business.
It's amazing that that dude has enough money to have a computer if he thinks this. Incredibly awful take. I didn't even read it at first because I knew he was just dumb.
I literally just saw Brandon Katz and clicked timeout. I didn't even know what he had said.
That's on another level of stupidity. Can you imagine thinking that the sports book's just like, you know what we're going to do? These are all going to be gimmies every day. At first I thought I read it wrong. And then I was just like, oh no, I forgot that he doesn't he's not bright. It's not only are they not positive, it's wildly negative for most of those bets. Jesus. All right, let's handle San Antonio, where Trey Jones is doubtful, Romeo Langford is out, Jeremy Sohan is out, and Devin Vassell is out. This place starts to get kind of ridiculous. Josh Richardson is 29% owned right now. Seems about right to me. Could certainly go to more. Malachi Branham, only 14% owned. That one is the more interesting piece to me, just from an ownership perspective. Jakob Poeltl pulling some love. At least he has the size to deal with Embiid, but it's probably not going to go well for him. Stanley Johnson, though, is the second most owned Spur today at 18% ownership. We didn't even mention the fact that Keldon Johnson gets an even bigger usage bump now with another guy off. He's 7% owned. I unfortunately like the Spurs today. No part of that makes me feel good.
Yeah, I really wish I didn't, but I'm with you. I mean, just the minutes. Like Branham should play a lot. Josh Richardson should play a lot. You should get more playing time from Stanley Johnson, who's not a horrible point per minute guy. Jakob Poeltl is a capable playmaker, so excuse me. You could certainly see, a bump there for him as well. Another good center option at 5,600. We know the minutes are just sort of all over the place with him, but in most games that are competitive and where he's not in foul trouble, you're getting him approaching 30 minutes. Doesn't always happen, but that's typically been the case. And they certainly need more offensive firepower now as well, without Jones, in addition to without Vassell. So I like getting to Poeltl, even though he's risky. In tournaments, the upside for Keldon Johnson at 7,300 is certainly there. You would think that if this game is competitive till the end, there's a good chance Keldon Johnson's having a big offensive game. I will be getting to a lot of this team. I just don't feel good about it because they mostly suck, but no real way around it given how banged up this team is.
Yeah, this is brutal. Here's the real question for you that I know is gross. Malachi Branham or Davion Mitchell?
I mean, Mitchell's 600 less. Branham has shooting guard. We haven't talked about a ton of great point guards today, though.
No.
Probably Mitchell. I have as much confidence as it sounds like based on how I said that.
Yeah, I don't. It's just tricky across the board.
So
I think the good thing for Malachi Branham is they don't really have a ton of other options. And I like whether this game is a blowout or not a blowout, I think Malachi Branham just kind of has to play a bunch. Like I think Josh Richardson's more likely to lose minutes than Branham is today.
Right. And I mean, really, I think the difference in price between him and Mitchell just makes them comparable. Like 370 minutes this year without Vassell or Trey Jones on the floor. Branham's at 0.73. We talked about Mitchell being at like 0.65. Mitchell's got the better matchup. He's a little bit cheaper. Branham has better positional eligibility. To me, they're basically just like the same thing. Josh Richardson, 1.07 DraftKings points per minute, 1.16 for Johnson. Poeltl, 1.09, which is actually lower than you would expect going forward. Stanley Johnson, 0.9. Bates Diop's at 0.8. Like the nice thing about this team, at least, is all these guys that I really don't feel comfortable playing are at least decent point per minute guys without Jones or Vassell on the floor.
This is going to be one of those ridiculous, awful experiences. The fact that Stanley Johnson's 18% owned right now is just one of those things where you look at it and you're like, I mean, I guess so. You could also tell me how many people do you think know that Stanley Johnson's on the Spurs that follow the NBA?
What'd you say?
How many people out there that actually follow the NBA even know that Stanley Johnson's on the Spurs?
Unless they're playing DFS, like none.
And I would say that quite a bit of people that play DFS also don't know that Stanley Johnson is on the Spurs. You ready to close this one out?
Yep.
Guys, hit that like button one last time. 660 people in the house, 120 likes. Feels like we should be able to get up to 200. So don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up if you can. The Hawks are 1.5 point dogs in Utah, 240 total. Free reign to get to the Hawks today. Everybody that's normally in is in. Basically 10% ownership coming to Murray, 10 to Young. Nothing else really coming into Atlanta. Do you find anything really appealing for Atlanta? I continue to like that Murray price tag.
Yeah, Young and Murray both are reasonable just given the minutes that they play, the upside that they have. Obviously, Young's the better point per minute guy when they're both in. And his salary has come down a little bit. It's a nice matchup here against Utah as well. So I like getting to them. And like I said before, we don't have quite as much at point guard today. There's obviously still very good point guard plays, but you don't have SGA, you don't have Luka, you don't have Ja Morant. So it's a little bit easier to get to Trae Young, whereas like the other day, he just kind of got pushed to the side because you had so many guys around him. So I do like getting there. Murray looks fine. Capella's another high upside center that isn't going to get much ownership because it's just a million centers. DeAndre Hunter as the last guy in looks okay, but to me, Trae Young's my favorite guy from Atlanta.
I think mine's Murray, but it's only those two guys.
Yeah.
And then we close it out with the Utah Jazz. Jazz are also at full strength once again. We've got close to 20% ownership coming into Markkanen and Clarkson, about 10 coming into Conley. Very limited ownership coming in everywhere else. I don't mind taking some shots at some of these Utah guys. I think Kessler's totally fine for 5,800 at this point. When you look at Utah, where do you want to go most?
Lauri Markkanen at 8,400 leads the way at 19% owned. His price tag is just right back to where you can play him a lot. Plays 35, 36 minutes. He's about a 1.2 DraftKings point per minute guy. So I like getting there. Clarkson and Conley both look pretty good as well. Clarkson, the better point per minute guy, but also more expensive. Both guys should play around 32 minutes, give or take. So I think they look okay. Add Walker Kessler to the list of high upside centers. If you don't think he has a high ceiling, all you have to do is go back one game and see what he can do. But at the same time, it's just difficult to prioritize him when on average he's probably playing 27, 28 minutes, and you just have all of these other good centers. But his ability to block shots really just gives him a high ceiling no matter what. So he's another low owned guy that you can get to in large field stuff.
Anything else here for Utah?
How many minutes do you think Kelly Olynyk plays?
I gave him 22.
Yeah, so he played 20 last game. He played 15 the game before. His price tag's down to 4K. Like, if he plays 24, 25 minutes, he is a phenomenal play. If he plays 20 to 22, he's a decent play.
Yeah. I mean, I look at Kelly Olynyk today at 4K. It's $800 more than Stanley Johnson, but at some point in time, I expect Kelly Olynyk to start getting a little bit more minutes. If that happens to be today, that's interesting. I don't mind him as a GPP option, just kind of scary.
Yeah.
I was going to say Prize Picks videos. Bet Pro video coming out for you in a little bit, right?
Yep.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for the NBA Strategy Show. Thank you to Prize Picks for being the sponsor of this one. Thank you to chat, everybody except for Brandon Katz, for sure. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Don't take Brandon Katz advice. That much I can tell you. Good luck to you guys tonight. Win some money. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Deeper dive live before lock later tonight. Have some fun. Win some money. We'll talk to you later. Peace.